My friend's boyfriend sucks, and I don't know what to say anymore. It's not uncommon to feel caught in the tangled web of someone else's relationship, especially when the person is your best friend, a radiant, funny, ambitious soul whose potential seems limitless. My best friend, a vivacious young woman of 20, and I, a year older at 21, share a bond forged during high school. From those awkward early days of navigating teenage life, we've grown inseparable. Her laughter could light up the dullest day, and her ambitions always stood as a beacon of inspiration for everyone around her. I often marveled at how driven she was, juggling schoolwork and extracurriculars with an effortless grace that seemed beyond her years. But our friendship wasn't without its challenges. During our sophomore year, she met him. He was a senior then, a boy who seemed charming at first glance but carried a storm within him that I would come to know all too well. The spark that ignited between them quickly grew into a relationship. At the time, I remember her excitement, how she spoke about his humor, his attention to detail, and the way he made her feel special. As an outsider, I wanted to believe her happiness would be endless. But as their relationship unfolded over the next 5 years, cracks began to show, and it became painfully clear that her once bright flame of joy was flickering under the weight of something heavy and toxic. She talks about him all the time, as if trying to convince herself and maybe the rest of us that their relationship is still as idyllic as it once was. Her words, however, often betray her emotions. She comes to me in tears, sometimes so distraught that it feels as though her world is crumbling. Other times, she's seething with anger, recounting something he's said or done that has left her questioning why she stays. She's confided in me on countless occasions that she feels she might should break up with him. Yet, each time, she backtracks. It's a cycle of uncertainty and indecision that has left her spiraling and me grappling with how best to support her. When she speaks of him being the safe option, it confounds me. Safe? In what sense? From the outside looking in, his behavior screams instability. But for her, the idea of severing ties after so many years together is daunting. It's as though she's anchored to the past, clinging to the memory of who he was or who she hoped he would be. Despite everything, she sees in him a familiarity, a comfort born of time, even though the reality of their relationship is anything but secure. Their dynamic is like a pendulum swinging wildly between extremes. One moment, she's reminiscing about the early days of their romance, the laughter, the adventures, the whispered promises of a shared future. The next, she's recounting his lies, his temper, and the way he undermines her dreams and ambitions. The constant oscillation is exhausting for her, and truthfully, for me too. I want to be there for her, to reassure her that she's not alone and that her worth isn't tied to him or anyone else. Yet, as her confidant, I can't ignore the toll it's taking on her spirit. Her mind seems to be at war with itself, logic and emotion battling for dominance. She knows, deep down, that his actions and words don't align with the love and support she deserves. Still, her fear of being alone or of having wasted so many years keeps her tethered to him. It's a heartbreaking dichotomy to witness, this vibrant, intelligent woman doubting her own strength and settling for someone who dims her light rather than fuels it. What hurts most is watching her slowly change under the weight of this toxic relationship. Her once unshakable confidence has been eroded, replaced by self-doubt and a growing sense of isolation. She hesitates to share her dreams with him now because his reaction is often dismissive or even cruel. She holds back parts of herself, afraid they might spark another argument or, worse, indifference. The girl who once seemed so fearless now questions her every move, unsure if she's strong enough to stand on her own. And yet, she keeps coming back to me, seeking solace, validation, and perhaps a nudge in the right direction. I try my best to be her rock, to listen without judgment, and to remind her of the incredible person she is. But as the years pass and the cycle repeats, I find myself wondering, am I really helping her, or am I enabling her to stay in a situation that's slowly breaking her spirit? It's hard to fathom why my best friend, someone so accomplished and full of potential, continues to endure this relationship. Over the years, her boyfriend has proven time and time again that he's more of a liability than a partner. He lies about big things, small things, and everything in between. From trivial fibs to cover up bad jokes to serious breaches of trust like hiding his cigarette habit, which she explicitly asked him to stop, his dishonesty seems almost second nature. One of the most egregious examples was when he flunked out of college and hid it from her, only for her to find out later in the most humiliating way. Instead of apologizing or taking responsibility, he downplayed the situation, leaving her to question her own sanity and judgment. His anger issues are another glaring red flag that hasn't diminished, despite her endless optimism that he'll change. She genuinely believes that, in time, he'll grow out of this explosive behavior. But I've watched the opposite happen. His temper seems to worsen with each passing year. He yells and threatens people over the smallest slights, creating scenes in public that leave her mortified. Although he doesn't direct his rage at her, the sheer volume of his outbursts is enough to erode her sense of safety and peace. His threats are indiscriminate, targeting both men and women in our circle of friends for their perceived interest in her. The paranoia he exudes is suffocating, and the fallout has been devastating. Our mutual friends want nothing to do with him anymore. Some have even gone so far as to ban him from their homes. What's particularly distressing is the way his anger and insecurity bleed into his treatment of her ambitions and values. They've always been on different ends of the political spectrum, but over time, his views have grown more extreme. Instead of agreeing to disagree, he belittles her opinions and dismisses her as naive whenever they clash. Worse, he mocks her pursuit of higher education, insinuating that her drive to earn multiple degrees and become a teacher is either pointless or doomed to fail. It's maddening to see someone as intelligent and hardworking as my friend being talked down to by someone who can't even manage his own temper, let alone his future. The insults don't stop there. Her family, who she adores and is incredibly close to, has also become a frequent target of his scorn. He criticizes them in ways that are both petty and cruel, and the damage he causes is palpable. Just recently, during their anniversary, he managed to ruin what should have been a special day by directing his frustrations toward her family yet again. His solution? An insincere apology paired with a generic bouquet of flowers, hardly enough to erase the sting of his venomous words. His behavior isn't just confined to moments of anger. He frequently says offensive things, racist jokes, sexist remarks, cruel digs whether in private or in public. When confronted, he doesn't apologize. Instead, he doubles down, repeating the comment until it provokes a reaction. I've witnessed these moments firsthand, desperately trying to steer the conversation to neutral ground, but it's as if he thrives on pushing people to their breaking point. My friend often tells him off, but it's futile. Her protests are met with mockery, or worse, complete disregard. The constant tension between them is unbearable, not just for her but for everyone around them. They bicker incessantly, their arguments escalating to the point where our friends no longer want to be in their company. It's a shared sentiment among us. We can't endure his toxic presence any longer. Some of our friends have outright banned him, refusing to let him step foot in their homes after his aggressive and inappropriate behavior. It's not just his actions that make their relationship untenable, it's also the fundamental lack of compatibility that has become glaringly obvious over time. She has confided in me multiple times that they share no common interests anymore. The hobbies and dreams that once connected them have faded into oblivion, replaced by a chasm of differences that neither of them seems willing to bridge. She doesn't like his friends, who she describes as immature and equally toxic. She laments the opportunities she missed, wondering what it would have been like to date other people, to experience relationships that didn't leave her feeling drained and defeated. And yet, she stays. Maybe it's nostalgia for the early days of their relationship when things were simpler and filled with hope. Maybe it's fear of the unknown, of being single after spending so many formative years tethered to someone else. Or maybe it's the insidious belief that she can somehow fix him, that her love will be the catalyst for change. Whatever the reason, her decision to remain with him is taking a toll, and I worry about how much more she can endure before something gives. It's infuriating to watch someone you care about being so profoundly mistreated, and it's even harder when they refuse to walk away. I've tried to be supportive, to listen without judgment, but the sheer weight of her situation is overwhelming. There's a part of me that wants to shake her, to make her see that she deserves so much more than what he's giving her. But I know that approach would only push her away. So instead, I listen to her frustrations, biting my tongue when the urge to scream "just leave him" threatens to escape. What makes this even more painful is the realization that she knows, deep down, that this relationship is wrong. She talks about her regrets, her yearning for freedom, her doubts about their future. She even dreads the idea of marriage, brushing off his proposals and finding ways to justify delaying any concrete plans. Yet, despite all this, she remains stuck in a cycle of hope and despair, clinging to a relationship that has long since stopped serving her. I've watched her change over the years, her spark dimming under the weight of his negativity. She used to be so full of life, so confident in her dreams and abilities. Now, she second-guesses herself, wondering if she's good enough, smart enough, strong enough. It breaks my heart to see her like this, and I can't help but wonder, how much longer can this go on before she loses herself entirely? It's impossible to mask my feelings about him anymore. I don't like him at all. Despite my best efforts to stay neutral and supportive when I talk to her, my disdain for him inevitably seeps through. How could it not? Every story she tells about his behavior makes me question why someone as incredible as her continues to waste her time and energy on someone so clearly unworthy. Still, I try to bite my tongue, knowing that being overly critical of him could backfire and alienate her even more. She holds on to this idea that he's still the person he was when they first started dating. She talks wistfully about the early days of their relationship, how he was funny and attentive, how he made her feel special in ways no one else had. But the person she describes then feels like a completely different man from the one she deals with now. I've heard her say countless times that he's different when it's just the two of them, as though his bad behavior around everyone else is some aberration, a quirk that doesn't define who he really is. She clings to the belief that he'll change, that if she waits long enough or loves him hard enough, he'll magically become the partner she deserves. But from where I'm standing, that change isn't coming and probably never will. It's not just me who feels this way. She's told many of our friends about the things he's done, the lies, the anger, the insults, and the concern is universal. Almost all of us have tried, in our own ways, to encourage her to reevaluate the relationship. Yet, despite our best efforts, she remains caught in this cycle of hope and despair. I've tried to mirror her approach to the situation, offering advice only when she seems open to it and avoiding outright criticism of him unless she brings it up first. But there have been moments when my patience has snapped. Once, in a fit of frustration, I blurted out that she should just break up with him. As soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted them. I could see the hurt in her eyes, the defensiveness rising as though I had attacked her rather than him. I fear that moment might have driven a wedge between us, one I've been trying to repair ever since. Adding another layer of complexity to their situation is the fact that their relationship is long distance. He doesn't live in our area, which means they don't see each other often. When they do, it's usually for less than 48 hours at a time, sometimes as little as 12. One would think the limited time they spend together might make things more bearable, but it seems to have the opposite effect. Their brief visits are often filled with tension, arguments, and unmet expectations. Instead of recharging their connection, these fleeting encounters only seem to highlight the cracks in their relationship. The irony is that despite the distance, he remains a constant presence in her life, not as a source of joy, but as a source of relentless stress. She spends so much time worrying about him, about their future, about whether she's making a mistake by staying or by leaving. The weight of that worry is evident in everything she does, from her distracted demeanor to the way her once effortless laughter now feels forced and hollow. I've tried to reassure her, to remind her that she's still young and has her whole life ahead of her, that being single isn't something to fear but an opportunity to rediscover herself. but my words often feel like they're falling on deaf ears. She's convinced that she's already wasted too much time, that breaking up now would only add to that loss. What baffles me most is how she dreads the idea of marrying him. She's admitted as much to me on several occasions, confiding that the thought of a lifelong commitment to him fills her with anxiety. Yet, when he brings up marriage, she finds ways to justify putting it off rather than confronting the root of her hesitation. It's as if she's stuck in a holding pattern, too afraid to move forward but equally terrified of stepping away. Her indecision has put a strain on our relationship, one that I don't know how to navigate. I want to be there for her, to comfort her when he inevitably does something hurtful, but the emotional toll is becoming unbearable. It's not just her stress that weighs on me. It's the helplessness of watching someone I care about remain trapped in a situation that's clearly destroying her. What's worse is how her behavior has started to shift in troubling ways. She's become more attached to other men in our social circle, seeking attention and validation that she's not getting from him. I've warned her against this, told her that it's not fair to herself or to the people she's turning to for comfort. If she's unhappy in her relationship, she needs to address it directly rather than looking for distractions elsewhere. But my words seem to have little impact. She brushes off my concerns, insisting that it's harmless, even as I can see the potential for disaster looming on the horizon. At this point, I'm not sure what role I'm playing in her life. Am I a source of support, or am I enabling her to continue in this toxic cycle? By listening to her vent about him without pushing her to make a change, am I inadvertently giving her permission to stay stuck? The thought haunts me, and I don't know how to reconcile my desire to be there for her with my growing frustration and exhaustion. I want to believe that she'll find the strength to break free on her own, but each passing day makes that hope feel more distant. All I can do is wait and wonder if there's anything left for me to say or do, or if I've already done all I can. The past year has been a whirlwind of emotions for her, for me, and for everyone in our circle who has witnessed the strain her relationship has placed on her life. She's changed in ways I never imagined, and not for the better. The bright, ambitious, vibrant person I've known since high school now feels like a shadow of herself. She's constantly stressed, upset, and emotionally drained. The weight of her relationship has transformed her into someone I barely recognize, and as much as I want to pull her out of this, I feel like I'm sinking with her. I've tried everything I can think of to be there for her. I've reassured her time and time again that she's strong enough to handle this, that her worth isn't tied to him or to any relationship. I've told her that she's not alone, that all of us, her friends, her family, are here to support her no matter what she decides. I've reminded her that we're still so young, that she has time to figure out her life and doesn't need to settle for someone who makes her miserable. But no matter how many ways I try to say it, my words feel like echoes bouncing off a wall. She hears me, but she doesn't listen, and I don't know how much longer I can keep repeating myself without breaking down. I've made it a point never to bring up breaking up unless she mentions it first. I know how sensitive the subject is and how easily she could shut me out if she feels judged or pressured. Instead, I've tried to focus on her strength, her potential, and the life she could have if she wasn't weighed down by this toxic relationship. But no matter how much I try to steer the conversation toward positivity and hope, it always circles back to him and the latest hurtful thing he's done. It's exhausting, not just emotionally, but mentally. I'm starting to feel like I'm running out of things to say, like I'm trapped in an endless loop of the same conversations with no resolution in sight. The truth is, I'm tired. So tired. I want to be there for her, to be the friend she needs, but I'm reaching my limit. Every time my phone buzzes with a text or a call from her, I feel a mix of dread and guilt. Dread because I know it will likely be another story about him, another emotional crisis I can't fix, and guilt because I feel like a terrible friend for not wanting to pick up the phone. This isn't who I want to be. I want to support her, to be her confidant, but I also need to take care of myself, and right now, I'm not sure how to do both. I've thought about setting boundaries, but the idea terrifies me. How do I tell someone I care about that I can't handle hearing about their problems anymore? How do I explain that I need space without making her feel like she's losing one of the few people she can rely on? The last thing I want is to hurt her or make her feel abandoned, but I also can't keep pouring from an empty cup. I need to find a way to protect my own mental health without shutting her out completely, but I have no idea where to start. Moving out soon adds another layer of complexity to this situation. On one hand, I'm relieved to be putting some physical distance between us. Maybe the space will help me reset and recharge, to find a way to support her without feeling so overwhelmed. On the other hand, I worry about what will happen when I'm not there for her as consistently as I am now. Will she spiral further? Will she feel even more isolated? The thought keeps me up at night, the guilt gnawing at me like a persistent ache. What I keep coming back to is this: I can't make her decisions for her. I can't force her to leave him or to see what we all see so clearly. She has to come to that realization on her own, and until she does, all I can do is be there in whatever capacity I can manage. But what does that look like? Does it mean listening to her vent and offering the same reassurance as I always do, even when it feels futile? Does it mean gently but firmly drawing a line and letting her know I need to step back for my own well-being? Or is there some middle ground I haven't considered, some magical solution that will let me be the friend she needs without losing myself in the process? At this point, I'm desperate for guidance. Is there something I haven't tried? Something I haven't said? How do I navigate this without breaking our friendship or breaking myself? I want to be there for her, but I also need to stay sane. If there's a way to do both, I hope I can find it soon. Until then, I'll keep trying, even if it feels like I'm running out of steam. Because despite everything, she's still my best friend, and I can't give up on her, not yet.